downtown where you can get a date for 50, 60, 70, even 80% off the original social marketplace price. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this action-packed all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, because we're having us a barbecue. The pride of many single, successful, well-educated black women oftentimes leads to their downfall. And an example of this is presented to us in the Christmas photo of attorney Eboni K. Williams as she takes an official Christmas photo with her newborn baby. Now, in this photo of Eboni K. Williams, as she holds her newborn baby as they sit there in matching pajamas, Eboni K. Williams basically took this picture not to celebrate the holidays and celebrate Christmas as related to sharing the hope that people had with the birth of Jesus Christ. No, what Eboni K. Williams wanted to do with this photo was express her contempt for black men and basically show how she's going to spite black men by having her family without one. Now, Eboni K. Williams, this was a successful attorney, black female attorney, who after seeing her relationship with a white man basically wind up falling apart, decided that she was going to go out here and have a baby on her own through in vitro fertilization. And before she went to have that baby, Eboni K. Williams sought the counsel of Iyanla Vanzant, a known black man misandrist who hated black men, but even she was not as far gone to the point of Eboni K. Williams, because even as she tried to counsel Eboni K. Williams as related to the sad state of affairs of her perception of men, she basically found out how lost she was when she proposed to Eboni K. Williams that she go out here and consider getting involved with a bus driver, and Eboni K. Williams bristled at the question because the question was basically a code word for black men, and bristled at it by saying she would only deal with the owner of the bus company. And she, by that code word, basically what she was saying was she only wanted to get involved with a white man, which was who she was involved with during the pandemic. She was involved with a white man who had just basically divorced his wife, and during the pandemic he decided to go back to his family because he didn't see Eboni K. Williams as a viable partner. No, this white man basically saw her as a side piece, and as she wound up this relationship falling apart, she then continued to express her contempt for black men as related to that Iyanla Vanzant interview. And in that interview, as she expressed her contempt for black men, she then decided to go on this quest to become a mother on her own. And she wanted to become a mother on her own because since she saw that she could not get involved with the white man that she wound up deifying and worshiping due to the dysfunctional way she was raised by a single mother herself, who sadly passed on her traumas about her experiences with black men onto her daughter, and her daughter basically buying into all of those wrong ideas about black men based on what her mother experienced, continued to express her contempt for black men, and again looked to express her contempt for black men to the point where after her relationship, where she was a side piece to a white man, wound up falling apart, wanted to go out here and basically stick it to black men. She wanted to stick it to black men by having this child on her own, but sadly, as she looks to stick it to black men because she's too proud to admit that she's wrong, what she's doing is she's going to wind up hurting herself and even worse, hurting her child. Because what's happening here with Eboni K. Williams is that she's basically perpetuating a vicious cycle of single motherhood onto her daughter that was passed on to her by her mother. And this whole vicious cycle is starting because Eboni K. Williams just doesn't want to deal with the legacy of trauma that has happened to her. She doesn't want to deal with the legacy of trauma and basically deal with this as related to counseling. And it's really sad because even when a licensed counselor like Iyanla Vanzant tried to help Eboni K. Williams, she refused to accept that the issue that she's having with black men. She refuses to accept the issues she's having with black men. And the problem is that she doesn't want to admit, hey, maybe your mother was wrong about black men, and maybe your mother was wrong because she's just going out here teaching you all of the things as related to her traumas with black men, because her husband walked out on her and basically walked out on the family. And Eboni K. Williams felt that based on what her mother experienced, she would go out here and walk out on black men. But walking out on black men basically put her on a road to a paradigm of failure that I talk about in depth in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. And in that book, I talk about the paradigm of failure that many black women wind up in because they follow narratives like white feminism and also don't want to deal with the emotional baggage of trauma from past relationships, don't want to deal with the trauma from a past relationship with a bad black man, and they go out here, and because they don't deal with that trauma, they pass dysfunctional values on to their daughters. And as they pass those values on to their daughters, what happens is that those daughters filled with a head filled with a lot of wrong-headed ideas about black men and the perception of black men being deadbeats, being lazy, and being incompetent, basically go out here and overcompensate by getting involved with a white man. But the great irony is because of the dysfunctional way they've been raised and taught about men, they get involved with a man just like their fathers. And that's what happened with Eboni K. Williams. She got involved with a man just like the father her mother told her about, who basically saw her as a side piece and basically treated her like this because this white man's mind and perception of black women was not to see a woman as a viable wife, but as somebody to have a little taste of chocolate. And after he got his taste of chocolate and the pandemic came along and he started to fear his own mortality, that's when that white man decided to go back to his family and further did more emotional damage to Eboni K. Williams, put on more emotional scars, and as she got more of these emotional scars, she then looked to take it further out on black men, to spite black men, to say that she's going to have this child alone and raise this child without a father, sadly putting that daughter on the same road of the paradigm of failure that her mother put her on, and it's all due to the pride that Eboni K. Williams learned from her mother. Now, when it comes to a lot of these black women, from generation to generation, it's their pride that basically leads to their fall, from the generation of black women who basically were too proud to go out here and admit that they made a mistake and got with the wrong guy or walked away from the wrong guy to become a part of the more economically secure welfare state or get one of these jobs. Many of those women were too proud to admit that they were wrong by siding with white feminism, and instead of them taking responsibility, what they did was continue displaying the no-good black man. But it was their decisions that basically put them in these situations where their children had no father, and as their children grew up, they blamed the father, but never took accountability for their part as related to why their relationship between them and their father did not work. And that's because they didn't want to swallow their pride. And as their daughters grew up and got involved with the neighborhood dope boy or the neighborhood pookie, what happened with those girls is, again, didn't want to admit that they made a mistake, as they wound up having daughters in their teen years and had daughters out of wedlock just like mom did. And again, further perpetuated a vicious cycle as related to things, and perpetuated this vicious cycle. And because these women don't swallow their pride, this is why the black community has fallen, because they don't want to swallow their pride and admit when they're wrong. And this is the paradigm of failure that Eboni K. Williams is currently in. Even though she's gotten that success as a lawyer, she's basically a failure in life because the barometer of success for a woman is marriage, and Eboni K. Williams just can't get married, and can't get married basically because she's too proud to admit the approaches to life that her mother taught her are complete failures. She's too proud to admit that everything she learned from mom was completely wrong, and she's basically out of God's order. And instead of looking to be repentant and go to God and basically ask for forgiveness of her sins and learn about the role of a woman as a helpmeet, what this woman wants to do is basically, again, belligerently insist that her way is going to work, insist her way is going to work because she's caught up in the material and doesn't really understand the spiritual. And because she doesn't understand the spiritual, she doesn't understand a child needs two parents, a child needs a mother and a father, a child needs the love of both parents to be an example of Christ, to be an example of the gospel, to be a model for a healthy relationship in front of that child. She doesn't understand this at all. No, she insists that her way is going to work and that she can have this child on her own without ever considering who the father is, because what she's going to do is again be the mother and the father that the white feminist told her she could be. She's going to be the mother and the father, but all she's doing is making her child a twofold child of hell, and because she's miseducating her child as related to her spiritual foundation. Moreover, she's going out here and putting her child on the road to either becoming a man or a woman in crisis as they grow up like a stalk, to become a child of the corn. That's what's happening here as related to things. And this seemingly innocuous picture of Eboni K. Williams is basically a picture that's made out of anger, made out of frustration as related to trying to make life work. And again, she's frustrated again and wants to spite black men. Again, wants to spite black men by saying that she could do it on her own. But God never meant for anybody to do anything all by themselves. No, he always meant for men and women to work together, especially about building families. And that's what Eboni K. Williams wants to do as related to things, and it's really sad. Now, there was a guy on Facebook who wanted to say that it was all about Eboni K. Williams, again, not being able to find a man in her tax bracket. But the problem here isn't about economics. No, the problem here is that Eboni K. Williams never was taught how to respect men. No, she was never taught how to respect men. And it didn't matter if that man was a bus driver making six figures, because bus drivers make very good money, or a billionaire or a millionaire was in her life. The problem is that the first teacher of Eboni K. Williams, her mother, taught her how to hate men, and taught her how to hate men by the unconscious things that she did, possibly talking bad about the father or talking bad about men. And that made her into someone who basically overcompensates with this haughty and arrogant attitude, a haughty and arrogant attitude that no man would deal with, especially a man from a higher tax bracket, like the guy on Facebook wanted to say. And again, a man in a higher tax bracket, the first intangible he's looking for in a woman is the same one a guy like myself looks for, and that is respect. If a man can't get his respect, he's not going to look to have a relationship with a woman. And it's as simple as that. But Eboni K. Williams and many feminist indoctrinated black women don't understand this, and they approach men from a condescending way with a haughty attitude and just look to talk down to a man. And that's the thing that turns most men off. It turns most men off when a woman goes out here and is extremely disrespectful from the first meeting. And again, a guy who makes more money, he ain't gonna put up with no disrespect. He's not going to sit there and put up with disrespect, especially from a 40-year-old woman, a 40-year-old woman who's in the social marketplace, whose social marketplace value has dropped exponentially to the point where it's about 50, 60, or even 70 or even 80% off its original social marketplace price. No guy who, again, is making 6 to 7 figures is going to put up with being disrespected. No man is going to put up with that from a 40-plus-year-old woman, especially in a social marketplace where women outnumber men 4 to 1, and men have opportunities who make that type of money, especially if they are older, to go out here and pursue a younger woman who will be more respectful and look to learn from his leadership. That's what a man is going to go out here and pursue instead of Eboni K. Williams, the single, successful, well-educated black woman who thinks that she knows better than a man and wants to compete against a man in a relationship. And this is one of the reasons why she's one of the 70% of black women who are single. She's one of the 70% of black women who are single because she looks to compete against men, except for those white men who she's the side piece to. And even in that relationship, she basically was not seeing how she was not a priority, because if this man is married and has children, that woman is going to be the priority because he basically has bonded with that woman. So she basically couldn't see how she put herself in a place where she's second best and will not be in a place where she could be in a place with those men in those higher tax brackets, because if a man is in a higher tax bracket or a so-called high value man, that man has more choices and more options, and he's not going to go out here and settle for less. He's not, especially with a woman who's shown herself to be condescending, shown herself to be arrogant, show herself to be disrespectful. No man is going to settle for substandard when he can go out here and establish his own standard, and no man is going to sit there and tolerate disrespect and when he can go out here and take his respect. No man is going to sit there and tolerate that. And that's what flies over the head of an Eboni K. Williams and the guy who posted this on Facebook, who basically was a simp looking to defend Eboni K. Williams and say she can go out here and have her own child. But having that child basically shows how little she understands that men, again, weren't interested in her basically because of the content of her character, and now are even less interested because they know that she's going to be, again, a very belligerent woman, again, a belligerent woman with pride who basically would be an anchor to him and not help lift him up. No, he can't elevate that woman because she's an anchor who will drag him down. She's an anchor who would have dragged him down with her negative attitude. And now that she's a single mother, she's basically further would drag him down because he would be basically on the hook for child support at this point if he did get involved with her. So Eboni K. Williams is, again, a sad case of what I saw growing up in the South Bronx for many years as a kid. She's a textbook example of the kind of black woman who basically is too proud to admit when she's wrong and would rather wallow in filth or take this fall rather than admit that she's wrong and go out here and get the help that she needs. And the only thing you can do with this type of woman is basically, again, talk about and show her as a lesson of how not to be, because if you want help to be able to rise out of a bad situation, you have to swallow your pride. You have to swallow your pride or go out in an ignominious fashion where you take a big fall. And with Eboni K. Williams, all we're seeing in real time is another example of what happens when black women can't swallow their pride and continue on taking that great fall. Now, if you want to see an example of what happens with a black woman who winds up taking a fall and has to swallow her pride, you can pick up my book, The Thetas, on Amazon.com. And in that novel, I show how the Colleen Anderson character basically was one of these proud feminists until the Theta sorority has her take a fall, and that fall helps her to grow and basically break out of that whole paradigm of failure she was about to fall into. And that story basically shows how a lot of black women, again, their pride leads to their fall, can lead to them on the way to taking a bad fall. And if you want to learn how to identify the paradigm of failure that many black women wind up in, you can pick up my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find that book at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to learn why so many women wind up on this paradigm of failure and have wound up in this whole path, you can also pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com, along with The Thetas and Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. All three of these books will, again, go in depth on women and the decisions that they make that lead to them, again, winding up on this bad road, and how you can, again, break out of that paradigm and live a more abundant life. And if you want to see me make more videos taking celebrities to the barbecue, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box so I can continue to pay for the internet and continue cooking up these celebrities as related to their bad decisions. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS Legacy. Sorority secrets of the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS Legacy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available for the first time in paperback, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. Learn all the reasons why so many black women can't find a husband and why 70% of black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.